Hello and welcome to my channel, Crime Corner with me, Raina K, where I sit in my corner and talk all true crime everything. If this is your first time being here, hello and welcome, and thank you all for taking the time to come and listen to the case that I have for you today. Today we will be discussing the case of Nichol Olsen, Alexa Montez, and London Berbiscus of Bexar County, Texas. It's an area where these tragic victims were found unalived in their home on January 10th, 2019 by Nichol's boyfriend at the time, Charlie Wheeler. I'm going to go back to where this all began to give you some backstory of this beautiful mother and her two beautiful daughters. So with all of that being said, let's talk about it. Nichol Layla Olsen was a beautiful soul who was born on May 27, 1981 in California. She was an only child at this time. She lived with both of her parents, and at some point in her younger years, her father got a job at H.B. Zachary Company, a construction business in San Antonio, Texas, and they moved to that area. Then when she was about 7, her brother was born, which was sometime in 1988. Tragedy would then hit the family when her father died of a heroinod on December 23, 1988. After this, Nichol said that her mother became a functional alcoholic who drank to numb her pain and grief over losing her husband. And it was like this for several years. Then when Nichol was 15, sometime in 1996, her and her boyfriend at the time, James Noble, had a son named Skylar Nobles. Nichol and James got married in 1988, and then a year later they divorced sometime in 1999. Then in 2001, she married a U.S. Marine, Carlos Montes Jr., and at this time they were living in Hawaii as Carlos was stationed there. And then later that year, on December 26, 2001, her mother had passed away of heart disease. Now, after losing both parents, Nichol became a parental figure to her younger brother, who would have been around 8 years old at this time. He went to live with Nichol and Carlos and Skylar. Then Nichol and Carlos had their daughter Alexa Denise Montez on October 8, 2002. They were together for 5 years, and in 2006, Nichol became a licensed hairstylist. And in that same year, she and Carlos got a divorce. After the divorce, Nichol moved to San Antonio, Texas, where she met Hector Berbiscus. Nichol and Hector got engaged, and she gave birth to their daughter, London Sophia Berbiscus, on February 11, 2008. She and Hector eventually broke up at the end of 2013, but shared custody of London. Nichol stayed in San Antonio, and from January to March of 2014, she lived with a friend. And then also in March 2014, she lived with a boyfriend, but it's not known who this was. They lived in an upscale home near the Dominion in San Antonio. And on March 10, 2014, she was accused of hitting him with an open hand. And according to the incident report, the cop on the scene stated that Nichol seemed very intoxicated, but that she was very polite and soft-spoken. She did tell the law enforcement and admitted that she became upset because she called him to pick her up from a location she was at, but when he didn't answer, she had to find a way to get home. And when she got home, he was there. So she said at that point she took his phone and saw something in the phone regarding another woman. So she got angry and admitted to hitting him, and she slapped him. The boyfriend then stated that he pinned her down to the ground to keep her from hitting him. So she was then arrested on a charge of a misdemeanor assault, but this charge was dismissed in 2015 because he did not want to press charges on her. It was around this time, however, that things started to turn around for Nichol, and she and her children, and her brother, moved into their own apartment. And in 2016, her and her two good friends / business partners named Vanessa Turney and Kelly started a wristwatch and jewelry business called Kiva Cole. And she was the co-owner, and they had such cute jewelry and watches, and this was all while being a cosmetologist, and she absolutely loved it. She loved what she did. She was happy. All of her clients, they had nothing but wonderful things to say about her. And in these pictures, you can see that she just loved what she did. She was very passionate. She worked very hard and provided for her family. And it seemed like such a wonderful time in her life. She was a wonderful mother and a big sister. A really good friend of Nichol said to know Nichol was to love Nichol. She was a bright light and social, and everybody just had just the most wonderful things to say about her. Now, sometime at the beginning part of 2016, Nichol received a DM from a man named Charlie Wheeler. Now, Charlie was a former rodeo star turned entrepreneur. He invested in several businesses and was doing very well for himself. He had seen her profile and sent her several messages telling her that she was beautiful and just things like that. And at first she ignored his messages, and then a friend of Nichol's said that one day she finally decided to message him back, and the two began to talk and get to know one another. And in the summer of 2016, Nichol had a business meeting along with her friend Vanessa that I mentioned earlier at La Cantera Resort and Spa in San Antonio, Texas. And she actually invited Charlie to go. And this was going to be their first time that they were going to be meeting in person. So Nichol was 6 years older than Charlie, and friends close to Nichol stated that they dated for a year and that, quote, they encountered roadblocks in their happiness, unquote. Friends of Nichol stated that Charlie enjoyed and loved his casual lifestyle and was not interested in settling down or having stepchildren, and he didn't even want to have children of his own. But Nichol's lifestyle, however, consisted of spending most of her free time with her son and her daughters. These girls, her son, her children were her entire world. Her son, Skylar, lived on his own, so Nichol's daily schedule consisted of getting off of work at 2:30 p.m. from the upscale hair salon that she loved to work at to be able to pick up her daughters from school, taking them to extracurricular activities, doing homework with them, cooking with them. So this was her life, and she loved it, but this was not at all what Charlie wanted or what he had in mind. He wanted Nichol, but he didn't want the responsibility of being a stepdad by any means. But a good friend of Nichol said that one day Nichol told her that she was going to be moving in with Charlie, and her friend asked, well, quote, what about the girls? And Nichol's response to that was, I know, right? He just wants us all to be there, unquote. So Nichol and her girls moved into Charlie's sprawling mansion in Anaqua Springs Ranch. It was $1 million home that he had purchased before. But her friend said that this sentiment wouldn't last long, and on several occasions they saw things that were disturbing to them. For example, for Nichol's business, they would take lots of photos to promote their jewelry, watch line as well. And she even had Charlie model the men's line of watches. So on one specific photo shoot, her friend Vanessa Turney stated that Nichol showed up and had a black eye. And her friend asked her what happened, and Nichol didn't blatantly say that Charlie did this, but she did say that her and Charlie got into a fight the night before and wouldn't give any other details, but this did raise red flags to Vanessa. There was another day that her good friend Vanessa had went over to their home, and she said that she witnessed Charlie get very angry. In her words, she said, quote, I saw him throw an absolute fit because he couldn't log onto his home sound system, that he said that the girls must have done something to it, unquote. And by girls, meaning Nichol's daughters, Alexa and London. And then she said that later that day, while her and Nichol were in a hot tub, that Charlie came outside and he was very upset because there was a pepperoni on the floor outside near the pool, and that he automatically accused Nichol's daughters, and he demanded that Nichol go pick it up. And Nichol did that right away. Needless to say that he overreacted, and this Vanessa stated, quote, Charlie was very certain to make Nichol aware that it was his house, he bought it and paid for it, unquote. At this point, Vanessa said that she pulled Nichol to the side and told Nichol, quote, I don't like him. What are you doing? It seems like you're a guest in his house. And Nichol replied to her by saying, I am a guest in his house. This is Charlie's home. This is not my home, unquote. She reassured Vanessa and that all was well and advised her friend not to worry. Vanessa said that this was the only time that she had ever gone over to their house, and after what she witnessed, she said that she didn't care to go back ever again because of how uncomfortable she felt seeing her good friend being treated that way. Another story that her friend Vanessa shared was that Vanessa had invited Nichol to go to a Spurs game, which is a basketball team in San Antonio, and that Charlie told Nichol, pass the phone to your friend Vanessa, where he proceeded to tell Vanessa, you're lucky that I'm letting her go with you. I trust you. So he let Nichol go with Vanessa and said that they decided to go to a restaurant lounge type place afterward. And the entire time, even at the game, Charlie was blowing up Nichol's phone and yelling and demanding her to go home immediately because he said that he saw that she was no longer at the game anymore because he checked the tracker that he had put on her phone. So they had to leave, and Nichol was embarrassed. She was absolutely mortified, but Vanessa took her home, and she said that on the way home, she told Nichol, this is not okay. This is emotional abuse. He's too controlling, and that's not healthy. And then on yet another occasion, a different friend came forward by the name of Monica and said that sometime in July of 2017, Nichol showed up to her house randomly one day and stated that she was there because she was left stranded by Charlie after a trip that they had both taken to Galveston, Texas for their anniversary, where her and Charlie got into an argument because Charlie had gotten very drunk and very loud and was belligerent. So security stepped in and escorted Charlie back to his and Nichols' room and told him that he needed to gather his belongings and leave the hotel premises. Nichol then told Monica that Charlie was so angry that he packed all of his stuff and grabbed her stuff and left Nichol at the hotel. And did I mention that he took her phone? Yeah, he did. So she ends up at her friend's house. She got a taxi right there because she lived in the area. Her friend Monica said, quote, she told me that they've had lots of fights, and this time she was done because he was really embarrassing and he left her in a whole different city. He left her stranded, unquote. Now, Monica had never met Charlie before. She said that Nichol was shaking, crying, and that she was terrified about everything that happened and was just devastated because this was supposed to be a good time for them, and it just ended horribly. Nichol ended up spending the night with Monica, and Monica said that her and Nichol talked the whole night, and that Nichol said, quote, no, you're right, I'm leaving him, unquote. But the next day, Nichol went right back to Charlie, so Monica stated that she was very upset at the fact that Nichol went back. And Monica said, quote, you can't help but to feel like you just wasted your time, like you were speaking to a wall or something. And I hate to say that, but I'm drained. I was drained, emotionally drained with her. I stayed up the whole night. I was crying. I was horrified with her for 17 hours, unquote. And sometime after this, Nichol was in the process of moving out, but it's not known if Charlie knew this or not, but it was confirmed later in a report when law enforcement went through Nichol's phone that she had received an email from a manager at an apartment complex that she was looking into an apartment at some point before the night of the horrific events. So now we go to the day of January 10th, 2019, and there are so many things that occurred. So law enforcement would receive a call around 9 a.m. to the Anaqua Springs ranch home, where an officer noted that he saw a man who we now know as Charlie Wheeler on the front lawn crying. However, officers did note that there were no tears visible and that he began to tell deputies that he had gotten into a fight with Olsen the night before and that he left to stay with someone else. Then stated that when he came back from there, he found Nichol, London, and Alexa deceased in the hallway of the home with visible gunshot wounds to the head, and London, the 10-year-old, had a gunshot wound to her head and her neck. They came out and stated that Charlie was the person of interest. However, the medical examiner ruled the incident as a murder suicide, and I'll be referring to that as MS. So the sheriff's office, specifically Sheriff Salazar, didn't accept this and refused to believe that he's spoken out several times regarding this case and how he absolutely does not think that this mother would do this to herself, much less her daughters. So this has caused lots of speculation and theories to come out about what really happened that night. So because it led deputies, they just don't believe that this case should be closed. So with all of that being said, there are some other details that have come out from the night of the unalivings, and even lawsuits against Charlie. So London and Alexa's fathers stated that the reason that they filed these lawsuits was because, one, in the lawsuit they are blaming Charlie for pretty much admitting that, allegedly of course, that she did take the lives of herself and the daughters, but that Charlie is responsible because he knew that Nichol was not acting like herself and she had access to the gun and was in a frantic state. But mainly they filed this lawsuit because they would be able to get more answers and get more information and updates as to what really happened and if it was in fact a MS. So the lawsuit would make it to where they would be able to obtain and access more information in the case that has not come out still to this day. So some of those things that came out were that law enforcement, of course, took all of the phones and looked back at all of the call history and showed that Nichol had made several calls that day of the unalivings. The first part of the day, she spoke to a friend named Debbie about London's audition for America's Got Talent to sing. And it was claimed by this friend that she spoke to Nichol 6 different times this day, and that on the 6th call that she had with Nichol, she stated that Nichol was acting frantic and just didn't seem like herself, and then just decided to change her mind about taking London to the audition and said that instead she was going to put her in voice lessons and was just jumping from topic to topic. And the friend stated that she did not feel right about this phone call with Nichol because she was not acting like herself. And she wanted to call Nichol back to make sure that everything was well, but her husband told her just to leave it alone. So she didn't call back, and unfortunately this was the last conversation that she would ever have with Nichol again. Another thing that came out after these lawsuits was that Nichol also made a call to London's father and also told him that she decided she wasn't going to take London to the audition and was going to put her in voice lessons. And he also mentioned that she was acting, quote, erratic and not her usual self, unquote. And not only that, later that night, there were 5 more phone calls that Nichol made. The first one was at 11:09 p.m. to Charlie's mother, Cindy, but this call wasn't answered. And then after this, the next call was made twice at 11:11 to 911, but the calls didn't go through. Then there were 2 more calls made to 911, and Sheriff Salazar has since commented on this and stated that since the calls were coming from a cell phone and disconnected right away, there was not a way for them to get GPS coordinates to send help to that area. But the one thing that he also claimed was that there was a call, which was the 3rd attempt to 911, that the call did get through to dispatch. However, they have never come out to say what the call was about, and still to this day, we don't know what happened on that call to dispatch, which just leaves me puzzled and wondering why won't they release the call. And also, a full medical examiner's report, which would include a toxicology report, has never been made public to find out if, in fact, Nichol had anything in her system to explain, quote, erratic and frantic behavior, which is really strange to me. Sheriff Salazar also made comments stating that Nichol had too many plans for her and her children for their futures, which is not consistent with someone who would do something like this. He also stated that he spoke to the FBI to ask them to get involved to help in the investigation and stated, quote, I don't have experts that can look at a crime scene photo and tell me if a body was posed in that position or did they naturally land like that after being shot, but the FBI does, unquote. And a year would go by with no updates, and by this time, Charlie had already sold the home for less than the value and moved to Austin, Texas, and was arrested again for a DUI after having a fender bender with another vehicle, and he refused to submit to the breathalyzer on scene, so he was arrested, but he was shortly released. Then a report was sent off to have the case closed, but the sheriff rejected it. And Sheriff Salazar, he came out and made another statement and stated, quote, "After methodically reviewing this case in its entirety, the decision was made to send the case back to CID for further investigation. And until every question in this case has been answered, the investigation will continue." Quite frankly, I don't think a full on report or an effort was made, and there were some stones left unturned. At this point, the case was 2 years old, and Sheriff Salazar had reassigned the case to a cold case detective. So these are things that make me go back and forth in my head and wonder or not if I believe that Nichol actually did this. If it was so cut and dry, then the case would have been closed, but that's not the case. There's a reason it's still open and a reason why they refuse to release any more information. The one thing that gets me is that Nichol had overcome so much in her life and had gotten to a place in her life where she seemed so happy besides the issue with Charlie. And I just can't see that she overcame such adversity and worked so hard to just end her life, much less the lives of her daughters, who she adored. And like they found the investigation, it seemed as though she was planning on moving out, or that at least looking at apartments for her and the girls to move into. So who really knows if maybe they had an ugly argument and she told him and she was leaving, and with his past of being controlling, he got angry and did something horrible, allegedly, of course. The theories in this case are endless from what I've ran into on several Reddit threads about him, but you know what, a lot of that you have to take with a grain of salt because we still don't know with concrete proof what actually happened. And of course, if you're looking at this at its surface level, then yeah, I can see where people believe that it was just a tragic MS where they get that from because allegedly she was acting frantic and erratic shortly before, but to me, in my opinion, it just doesn't add up. And logically, once you dig into the case like I did and you see the past, I really don't think that she did this. But that's just me, right? The other thing is that Charlie was the last person to see them alive, and hearing how he acted in the past and how many times he reminded Nichol that this was not her home, I have a hard time believing that he would just leave his own home instead of telling her and the girls to leave his house. And it's not like someone else could have done this because the home is in a gated community where there's 24-hour surveillance. So not any random person can get through and there not be proof of that. And also the fact that he owned the gun that he always kept in the nightstand next to their bed. Then he said that he went to his parents' house, but then it said that he went to a friend's house. And to me, it's giving red flags, in my opinion. I just really would like to know why she called his mother. And what I think about that is that maybe she was trying to call his mom to come over to speak to him, to try and calm him down, because when his mother didn't answer, the calls to 911 started right away. So why would she call his mom in 911 if she was just going to off herself and her daughters? She would have just done it. That's the part in this case that makes me think otherwise, and I would really like to know what was said in the 911 call that did get through to dispatch so bad. I'll link the press conference down below where Sheriff Salazar mentions this, and all of the other articles that I used to research down below for y'all as well. And as of now, the only other update that I've seen was from September 18th of 2022, is that London's family, specifically her aunt, spoke to the media and stated, quote, "As far as we know, there has been no other activity on this case for years, and the sheriff's department will not state if the case is still being investigated or why it hasn't been closed still," unquote. She and the family's lawyer have since written a letter to Ken Paxton, who is the Texas Attorney General, requesting that he take the case away from Bexar County Sheriff's Office and they want it reassigned to the Texas Rangers, which is the state's elite law agency. The letter cites that Berbisca's family has lost confidence in the sheriff's department to conduct, quote, "an impartial and accurate investigation into the three unalivings," unquote. And since the publishing of that article, from there hasn't been anything else that I can find, any other updates yet. I just really hope that more comes out and that all of the families involved in this case get some answers and closure finally. Especially her son, who is now on his own. He lost his mother and his two little sisters who he loved so dearly. So please send out some prayers for them, and let's pray that some more information comes out, that this case is just a very sad one and so tragic, and either outcome is just absolutely devastating. But I really want to know what you all think about the case and any theories that you may have, or you think that, is it just she was in a bad space mentally and she did this, but thank you so much for taking your time to be here and listening to me cover this case. I really appreciate it. Each and every one of you, I appreciate your time. I'm working on my next case, and I hope that you'll come back. And if you'd like to subscribe and click the notification bell when I post anything, it'll notify you for any future cases that I'm going to be covering. I hope that you all have a wonderful week, and until the next one, please be safe out there.